Welcome, everyone. The time is 7 p.m. and we are in open session. I'd like to ask everyone to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first we will begin by opening the public hearing on the Lyons Township High School District 204 fiscal year 2024 budget. Director Brian Stachak has a statement to read and is available to answer any questions.
I do. Thank you, President O'Bear. And so in order to start this public hearing, a recent law that was signed into, or I should say a law that was recently signed into law in May of 22 was Public Act 102-0895, which requires us, as part of both the budget hearing and the public hearing for the tax levy, to identify our cash balances in our funds at each of those meetings. And so tonight I'm going to do that, and then we can continue with the public hearing. So these are fund cash balances as of the end of August of 2023. In the educational fund, $26,867,538.74. The operations and maintenance fund, $10,549,985.05. The bond and interest fund, $1,538,692.60. The transportation fund, $4,813,772.19. The IMRF fund, Fund 50, $778,887.15. And then our Fund 51, those two funds they share the same numbers, so it's a combination of the two, but that's the Social Security portion is the Fund 51, $393,084.12, for a total in those two funds of $1,171,971.27. In our site and construction fund, $3,230,484.99. And finally, in our working cash fund, $4,134,698.66, for a grand total of $52,307,143.51. And so that concludes the requirement of that particular law. We will do this again with updated numbers probably for, we'll have to do it during the levy hearing, and we'll have numbers for through November of 2023 at that time.
Any questions, discussion?
Nothing more on that here.
Okay. Do we have anyone wishing to comment on the public hearing? Okay. At this time, I'd like to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is public participation. Once again, thank you for all joining us at this evening's meeting. As is the case with all of our meetings, there are two opportunities for the public to share their comments with the Board of Education, one now and one before we adjourn our meeting. For our first public comment session, we will be listening to comments from those audience members who have signed up to speak before the start of our meeting. After we finish our agenda items this evening, we will open up for our second public comment session, and we will hear comments and feedback from anyone who would like to comment after hearing the board's discussion and the information shared this evening. If you'd like to participate in the second public comment session, please fill out a form during our meeting and give it to Mary Lynn Muscolino, who will be either near the door or outside the door, and we will call speakers in the order which the forms are turned in. The board appreciates and values hearing comments from our community. Please understand that the board does not engage in dialogue or discussion during our meeting. If there is a specific question or comment that requires follow-up, the appropriate administrator will respond at a later time. Finally, each individual addressing the board will have 3 minutes for their comments, and we appreciate your cooperation in sticking to this time limit. In accordance with board policies 2:30, and 8:30, we thank you for keeping tonight's meeting respectful and civil for all in attendance. Marilyn, will you please call our first speaker?
Mr. Heitzman.
That would be great. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Charles Hitzman. I am a resident taxpayer, and I have 2 children here in school, graduate myself, and some of you here actually taught me. And thank you very much for your response, and Mr. Waterman of reaching back out. I did start last year with the proper channels of trying to address our bus situation that we have here with people who I was told to address them with, and they might be mildly getting better, but not where they should be, especially for the school district that we're in. Digging a little deeper into this, last year I actually showed up at the bus facility myself, offered to volunteer for 2 weeks to get the kids to school on time. I was laughed at. I'm overqualified for the position, and I was laughed at. There's a problem. Whether it's our administration here that's falling short on doing their jobs of having a contract that's 18 years, just being renewed year after year for 18 years, when our feeder schools have much stricter contracts, when other high schools in the area have stricter contracts than we do. Looking a little deeper into this, I mean, I'm not going to go through this and rightfully do somebody else's job, but we don't care where our teachers live to teach. Why do we care where our bus depot is? They get our kids to school on time, they get them home on time, does it really matter where they're at? I mean, just things like that just don't make sense in today's world. There are plenty of things in this contract that fall into non-compliance. There are also provisions in here for penalties. I'd rather not go through it after FOIA if any of those were actually adhered to or taken advantage of or enforced. Because I'm going to guess they weren't, but I can do that if needed. When a child misses 12 minutes, which is not 12 minutes, it's 12 minutes the bus is late, 15 minutes of their first period on that shortened day, that's 50% of their first period class. As a parent of an honor student as well as also a challenge student on both ends of the spectrum, that makes a huge difference. Also too, the actual discrimination of the routes after school, why does not everybody share equally in the bus that's late? Why is my kid consistently there 50 minutes after school when other kids get to go home early? There's discrimination on some sort of level there, and if that's not being addressed, at least it should be rotated some way, shape, or form to actually share that. The afternoon app is not current on the program that's there either. I don't know. I'm willing to help out. I want to help out, but I feel that wasting 2 to 3, 4 hours of my time of going through every line in the contract here to telling you what they're breaking and what's not isn't good for me. It's not good for you. Ultimately, if they can't fulfill their obligations, given the 2 weeks that the contract says to fall into compliance, they shouldn't be leaving students and leaving routes before their scheduled time. I will respect my 3 minutes.
No, if you want to go ahead and finish up, that's fine.
Thank you. There's just, this is a business contract. It's over $100 million corporation that we're contracted with, that there's a CEO that makes more than all of your salaries here put together, and they can't get our kids to school on time. It's a problem. If they can't fulfill their obligation, bring another bus company part-time and say, hey, we're having problems with these 3 routes. You want to get in our good graces and possibly win a contract in the future? Why don't you pick up these 3 and do it on a trial and error basis to see? I mean, yes, contractual, I'm a business person, you have to give them the opportunity, but I don't know if anybody's really playing hardball with this company or not. It's time. I can go on, but I thank you for allowing me the extra time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That concludes our comments for this time.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll have another comment session at the end of our agenda items. Okay, next we have our student representative report. Hello, Sophia, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Nice to see you as well. Thank you for having me back. Happy pumpkin spice season, everybody. To move on to athletics, congratulations to the football team for beating Hinsdale last week with a score of 42-17. Boys soccer has had an impressive season so far, winning 3-1 against Rockford, 1-0 against Stagg, and tying with Morton 1-1. They've also advanced to the final of the Body Armor Series tournament and are competing in the finals against Taft next Sunday. This month has already had many athletes of the week, including Ella Jean Kelly, Addison W., Abby S., Ryan Jackson, and Harris S. Girls cross country has had a successful time at the LT Invite with lots of personal records set in great races, and they also celebrated Senior Week. Girls swim won first in the 100 free relay with a time of 59.89 seconds, and also won second place in the 200-meter medley relay. Girls swim also won on both levels at Downers Grove North. The JV team won against the Fenwick JV Invite, and together they took fourth at the West Chicago Invite. Girls swim also won against Hinsdale Central on all three levels. Girls golf placed 7th out of 23 teams at the Providence Invite. Boys golf won first place at the annual 12-team LT Invitation. And bowling is having their first informational meeting October 16th. Congratulations to Abby Markworth for 2,000 assists in girls volleyball, and congratulations to the girls tennis team for winning the Homewood Invite and beating Hinsdale 4-1 in the LT Quad. For activities, many clubs have already hosted their first meetings, including Peaceable Schools Initiative, LTTV, Student Council, FHP, WLTL, Sustainability Club, Model UN, French Club, A Cappella Club, Polish Club, Class Board, German Club, and many more. Improv, Speech Team, and WLTL also hosted their own editions. And this week, the Safe Promise Club is Start with Hello Week from September 18th to the 22nd. Biz Concessions have also started to run the concession stand this year again for the football games, and Biz also donated to the American Red Cross at the football game to provide assistance to the people of Hawaii. Model UN and the Western Springs VFW Post 10778 sold poppies during lunch periods at both campuses last year, and the money raised from these sales raises money for wounded soldiers. And this month, the VFW presented a check of $440 as a donation to Model UN. During the football game against Hinsdale, the members of the Student Equity and Belonging Committee collected donations to support the LT Pact for Impact Service project during halftime. And congratulations to the Wind Ensemble for getting invited to perform at the 2024 National Concert Band Festival. Congratulations to Sydney M. for being named one of the 10 finalists for Photojournalist of the Year from Spotlight Journalism. And congratulations to Josie M. and Nina I. for being selected as one of the 10 finalists by the National Scholastic Press Association. Josie was a finalist for Photojournalist of the Year category, and Nina was a finalist in Story of the Year editorial category. Many LT artists also participated in the Art Fest in LaGrange. And for some friendly announcements, the College and Career Center has been hosting college visits from over 100 universities and colleges. And on Tuesday, September 19th, or tomorrow, is a National Voter Registration Day. And during the 4th and 5th period in the cafeteria, students can get prepared for the presidential primaries, as well as in the library during 4th through 8th period. On September 30th, or Saturday, at South Campus from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. is a free clinic open to the public and is intended to help those who can't afford their health care. And the College Career Center is also hosting Essay Palooza on October 11th, where seniors can have their college essays read by college admissions officers. And make sure to send in your completed essay by October 4th. And lastly, homecoming is October 9th to 14th, and that's celebrating Homecoming Week. That's all.
That's all. Amazing. Wow, we've rounded the corner towards October, and it's always so exciting to hear these reports, not just to hear everything that's going on, but every time there's always new things too. Like Essay Palooza, is that new?
That's a new thing this year.
That's really, really cool. That's great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So
thank
much
you.
happening. Thanks, Sophia.
Okay. Next, we're going to turn to Dr. Waterman for our superintendent report.
Thank you, President Albert. I have quite a few items tonight. I want to start just with a brief update on our land use consultant search. At our last meeting in early September, September 5th, it was agreed that I would continue to meet with and gather some proposals related to the board's potential engagement with the land use consultant. The purpose of this effort, as discussed by the board in early August and in late August, was that engaging with a land use consultant could potentially be beneficial in ensuring that our voice, the District 204's voice, is included in the process detailed in the Village of Willow Springs ordinance to review the current zoning of the Willow Springs property. And then, as has been discussed here at this table, a land use consultant could also provide some other important information to potentially inform future discussions and decisions about whether to sell the property, also such as a market analysis, maybe an appraisal, at current zoning, etc. So it was my intent to come to you tonight with a recommendation to hire a land use consultant. However, at last Thursday's meeting in Willow Springs, the Village Board of Willow Springs took a really important action to move their process forward by hiring a similar consultant that is going to review that they will review and advise them on current zoning for the property. So in taking this action to improve engagement with the land use consultant, they indicated that they expect to have a report back within about 4 weeks, so probably sometime in mid-October. So I think out of respect for their process and with the expectation that we're going to learn more about the future zoning of the property, should the board decide to pursue the option to sell, it's instead my recommendation tonight that we defer any further action on this until after the village report has been completed and publicly shared, which again, we expect to happen in about 4 weeks. So just wanted to give the board a quick update on where we're at with that, and obviously it's a little different than what we talked about a couple weeks ago, so just
Yeah.
wanted to share that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I noticed Melissa and Ryan aren't here. Would it make sense for you to reach out to them tomorrow and?
I'd be happy to do that.
Share, is that okay for Brian to reach out and provide these comments?
I could just share that update.
So that they,
I mean, I don't know why it's necessary.
I would agree. Like,
Like,
they can
they
follow
can-
our meetings.
right.
And attend if they had chosen.
I think it is, a courtesy, a transparent courtesy that gives an update. I think we normally would have expected to have a report or a recommendation on kind of what we've been doing every 2 weeks, so.
So every 2 weeks, you've been communicating with them what we're doing?
No, at our meetings, at our every 2-week meetings.
Okay.
This has been a topic of conversation, and tonight it's not, which is probably why they didn't come to the meeting, not knowing that there might be a comment related to it in the superintendent's report. For me, it seems like it would be appropriate transparency to reach out to them. I think they reached out to us when they were putting this meeting on their agenda.
Right.
I think it's
Yeah.
transparent because we're talking about it within the meeting.
Okay.
That's how I feel. I mean, that's how I feel strongly about it. We're talking about it here, they have the opportunity, we stream it to be transparent. If they were to reach out and ask the status, I don't have anything. I think being proactive to reach out, to tell them what went on at our meeting that they chose not to attend, that in person, they might be online,
Okay.
I think is.
Is there any reason not to do that, just in the
Well, I
spirit
mean, I
of-
don't think that they are like at every meeting that they're having and talking about this, coming back and giving us updates on what they've talked about.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, obviously we've made this as, by making our meetings streaming, it's available to anybody to watch in real time what's going on, so.
I think it could set a
I
precedent.
don't have a problem with it. It just seems like if we're trying to bridge a gap, it sounds like might be a 3-minute conversation,
It
but,
could even be an email,
I
for
would
that
probably
matter.
do
yeah,
that.
it could just, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see any, I understand the point. I don't see any harm in,
I guess I'm
Just-
just, the only thing I question is like, what would they have thought that we were gonna, I don't know, make a decision? I don't know why we would have thought to tell them anything. If we were gonna make a decision on that, we probably wouldn't have sent a follow-up, email.
I almost feel like I don't really have a position one way or another on the issue, but I also wonder if this is really even an issue for the board to make a decision on. You make the decision, in my opinion, of whether or not you want to reach out to them or not. Why do we need to be involved in that? Are we overreaching our responsibilities as board members?
I've communicated with him, for the last year, so I'm fine one way or the other. This is an important board decision, so I'll be very candid and say, I'd much rather have the support of the board in doing this, because this has been a board decision from the beginning, so I'm fine either way. It's a 2-second email. Personally, I think we're probably overthinking this a little bit. It's simply sharing with them the statement that I just read, and it
Yeah.
took 2 seconds. I could send an email, and it would take less than 2 seconds. But again, if there's concerns about the board, it's also just as easy to not send it.
I just think it sets a precedent of always having to keep them
Right.
up to date. If they're not at our meeting, to have to be reaching out to them, and should we not? I feel like, why did you not reach out to us? You did it last meeting, you did it the meeting before, and then we decide, let's just say that that's where we vote to reach out to them, and then 3 meetings from now, we think there's really nothing to reach out, but they would be expecting then an update. I think that places a burden on us to maybe disappoint, and to do that, and we have the transparency here.
I think that was my concern with the whole setting of precedents. Not that I'm strongly one way or the other, it's just always, I'm thinking of how it could harm us, potentially. And I think that's my only concern. I don't think there's any harm necessarily in doing it, the one time. It's just what the implications mean in the long run. That's just a concern.
I agree with Brian. I think we are overthinking this, and I just think there's, harm to us, but we're also, I don't think there is. I think it's just we're trying to move forward with a different tone, and it just seems like a courtesy. I don't know.
I feel like there's absolutely no risk in providing that courtesy. We were moving along for our August 7th meeting, our August 21st meeting, and our last meeting, we've talked about this, and now we're kind of saying we're going to wait for 4 weeks.
Yeah,
because we saw the actions that they took, and we're going to wait and see what their process is. But, again,
which is a lot of what some of the feedback has been from the village too.
Right.
Wait until.
Yeah, to me, it's in the spirit of collaboration. Not just transparency, but collaboration and transparency, which I think we had a lot of conversation about on August 7th, that's the approach that we're taking. But I agree, we're overthinking it, and we have.
I do have a question, Brian. Who was it that they named was the?
They approved an engagement with Housel Levine.
How do you say it? Housel?
It's Houseal. First name is, and then last name is Levine, Lavigene.
And that's considered, what is that, what kind of firm is it?
They do a wide range of services, but in their case, they approved them to simply review the current zoning of the property for a total amount of $7,500, but they're also a company that does a wide range of services.
Thank you.
I guess my non-position, I'll just say, I understand where we're coming. We don't need to, it's streaming, I'm sure it'll be seen. I don't know that it's necessary. I understand why, like, good neighbors, transparency, like, let's work together. I think the act of what we're doing here today and deferring is that good olive branch that we're doing, so I really don't know that it's necessary for us to reach out.
All right. Then I think we'll leave it at the meeting and go from there.
Okay. Anything else on that topic?
I don't think so.
Okay. Just also as a follow-up to my report, my superintendent report on September 5th, we have been able to collect a few more days' worth of data regarding transportation with First Student. During last week's late start, we had 2 buses that were late to South Campus. So just the progression this year is we had 10 buses late on August 30th. We had 7 late on September 6th, and then 2 last week. So again, we certainly have work to do because we have 2 buses that were late, and we know that's not acceptable, even with the small progress that they've made. In terms of departure times, a few weeks ago, right after the report, I'd shared with the board that we had a 30% improvement from week 2 to week 3. Last week, the number of buses that we had leave late were 7 on Monday, and then 3 on Tuesday, 0 on Wednesday, 5 on Thursday, and 2 on Friday. So it's just incremental improvement, not to where we expect. We do have ongoing conversations with our feeder superintendents. We're meeting this week to continue to brainstorm this and continue to express our concerns with First Student. But I think at the end of the day, we're also going to continue to collect data and obviously work with them in getting this to a much better place than where we've been the last 2 to 3 years. So I'll continue to share that information with you guys as well and keep you guys updated on kind of how we progress. Any questions on that or thoughts on that? Okay. I wanted to celebrate a few things tonight as well.
Do you have something, Michael?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to understand. I know that you're looking at other possibly other kinds of transportation systems or not, but I don't know if Windy City Transportation, if that could be an option for some of the routes that are constantly late. I know that you're saying that there's improvement, but is there a possibility to look at that maybe if not this year, next year, because this doesn't seem to be improving in the long run. This is the same situation as last year.
I mean, that's why we're doing this now, because we have to get, if we're going to make a change, we have to get way ahead of the game, because this is all going to happen in the spring, and we can't say in February or March, oh, let's try to decide to do something different. We have to start that now, and that's why we're doing it.
Okay.
I know this is not the first time we've had this discussion, and we've had it, you know, even before COVID, and then I know Jill we've talked about getting our own fleets and things like that we've entertained. So I know you guys were probably, even with the help of the feeder schools, looking at all kinds of other avenues too. See what other options we have.
I mean, we talked about this a couple weeks ago as well, but just introducing some competitiveness to this endeavor is probably the most important thing we can do. So, and that's what we're going to study this fall to see what we could do.
Yeah.
And sorry, I wasn't here when you guys talked about the hiring the own fleet. Obviously, that's a huge expense that would be a long-term potential payoff, but would that be part of the discussion that you guys have?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, so how that played out, I think that was at least a couple years ago, right, Brian? There was a discussion at the board table around that concept.
Yeah.
And we specifically asked the board, is that something you want us to study? Because that would be an inordinate amount of time and effort to study that.
Got it.
And if, I don't want to go down that road unless, again, that would be,
Well, and even at that time, there was the hiring issues too, which
Yep.
was like,
Yep.
Wasn't that like
they were
COVID?
having
we
such
don't personally
shortages.
believe that would solve the issues that exist in the market.
Yeah.
And isn't one of the issues that a lot of these, it's kind of like a monopoly, that a lot of these other smaller businesses are kind of end up being the same
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, there's not a lot of competitiveness in each region. That's what we're trying to study
But
to
we-
see if we can introduce some of that.
And we do use Grand Prairie though, you
We do,
said.
for special education
yeah, okay.
transportation. Yeah.
And they just don't have that bandwidth.
I mean, that's part of the exploration process of what other options are out
Right,
there in our
right.
area that could help with this.
Mhm. And then, I'm sorry, one more question,
Yeah.
because I know we have talked about it since you brought it up. So do we do an annual bid process? Or is it
We
every
have
so many
renewed,
years
no,
we've done that?
because we have a contract in place, we have renewed their bid
Right.
each year.
'Cause
No,
I
and that-
feel
Brian
like
can speak
at
more to
one
that,
point
but
there was
yeah,
a
we
time
renewed the
we
bid
did
each year.
too, And nobody came to the table. I
No.
almost feel like that happened.
We have not run an
Okay.
actual bid on that
Okay.
contract. As Brian said, I think it's, one of the last time we did it was 2000, was it 5, I think, if I remember correctly? So, yeah, so we have not done that. And we've talked about it. Unfortunately, there are, when we discuss the number of transportation companies that are left, there was a time when there were, some major large companies, there were some regional carriers, and there were some small ones. There really aren't that many left at this particular point. There are a couple of really large ones, and then maybe a couple of some more mid-sized companies that are left. There was a big buying spree of, a lot of these companies that were bought up over the course of time by the larger companies, Illinois Cook being one of them, and then First Student being another one. And so it's a difficult market because, as Dr. Wadman pointed out, there's not a lot of competition in these markets, and it makes it very difficult. And a lot of it comes down to really, unfortunately, some of the pricing structure as well. I've talked about this with some of the other local business managers, and one of the issues is to get somebody in here to undercut First Student in terms of cost when they have all the startup costs and all the same things that if we were going to start our own transportation, we would incur all of those costs as well. It's tough. It's tough to look at that and say, yeah, this is going to be, and look, if nobody else was to bid, right, and First Student comes in as the only bidder, we don't know that, of course, but if they were, and they come in at a 15% increase or a 20% increase in cost, well, that's who we're going with. And we still have the same service issues. Now we're just continuing to pay more for those same service issues. So it's not a great position for us to be in.
And that was the rationale 2 years ago when we had this conversation, that especially coming out of COVID with the driver shortage, and if we went to a bid and nobody else bid on it,
Right.
that we would be kind of losing the lower cost benefits of that contract to 2005, which is why we've just renewed it every year
Yeah,
and have
correct.
not taken. But now we're no longer just coming out of COVID and I'm glad you are looking into it further and exploring, any alternative / creative options, because the numbers, while incrementally better, are still not where we
Not
need them
there.
to be,
Right.
so.
And I feel like this is going to be a exploration that we need to make some decisions about like winter break probably. Like, we don't want to get much past winter break. If we're going to decide to truly take this to bid and open it up, we need to make that decision this fall.
And I guess part of the question I guess I would have is, could we do something similar to what we did with our attorneys, where we're looking at different vendors for different options? I know we do different for special ed versus gen ed, but even within the gen ed side, is there a way that we could do multiple companies to make sure that our service gets us what we need and potentially get us at a cost point that is tolerable? I don't know.
All ideas are on the table, so.
Yeah, something we can certainly look into. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll continue to share this data with the board here throughout the next several weeks.
Great.
Okay, I wanted to share some celebrations as well. I want to publicly congratulate LT Board Member Michael Thomas on receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Community Diversity Group at last Sunday's 32nd Annual Race Unity Rally. That was on September 10th. Michael was recognized for a lifetime of service to the community of LaGrange, to LaGrange School District 102, and of course to District 204 as well. So, Michael, obviously the award is so well deserved, and we want to congratulate you on this recognition. And I did mention that Michael gave a great speech at the event too, so.
Thank you.
Great work. It was awesome. We are also currently celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which is observed each year from September 15th to October 15th. The day of September 15th is significant because it's the anniversary of independence for Latin American countries Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. So I just want to remind our board and our community that we're about 25% of our students are of Hispanic origin, and we are enjoying planning activities to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month throughout the next 4 weeks now, so all the way through mid-October. And then September is also Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has identified September as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month to help promote awareness and recognition around the issues of suicide prevention, and also how to have appropriate and meaningful dialogue regarding the topic of mental health. So throughout this whole month, we are bringing light to suicide awareness in a variety of ways to really send out that important message that we all play a really critical role to speak up and to get ourselves and others support when we see warning signs. So this involves campus announcements. We have ribbon wearing happening as well, and then some other activities planned as we shine a light on a topic that's very difficult to discuss and uncomfortable to hear, but so important as well. It also coincides with our Save Promise Club launching the Start with Hello program last week as well. So that program brings attention to issues of social isolation and school isolation, not only in schools but in communities, and empowers young people to help create that culture of inclusion and connectedness within their school. So trying to bring some awareness to Suicide Prevention Awareness Month as well. And then Sophia mentioned this earlier, but we're proud to again partner with LaGrange Hospital and Advent Health to offer a free health clinic to our community this Saturday. I'm sorry, it's next Saturday. Saturday, September 30th. It'll be held at LT South Campus. It's pretty amazing, if I can just be candid. They offer chiropractic care, dental exams, diabetes, nutrition education, lab screenings, orthopedic and pediatric care, school and sports physicals, which are so important to get, vision screenings, and a whole host of other health services. So this is the second annual event for us. It's the second year we've hosted and partnered with them, and hopefully we'll have even more community members attend this year than we did even last year. So always great to partner with LaGrange Hospital. Also, Public Acts 096-434-097-256 and 097-0609 require that on or before October 1st of each year, all districts must share with the Board of Education and post on its website an itemized salary compensation report for every employee in the district, which includes base salary, pension contributions, health insurance costs, and any other form of compensation. So accordingly, the district compensation reports were provided to you at your table this evening, and these will be posted on our website, on the LT website, tomorrow, in accordance with the law. And then finally, the district has received 4 FOIA requests since the June meeting, and those requests are also outlined in a memo that was provided in your personal board packet this evening. So that
Okay.
concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna move on to unfinished business, and we will begin with the adoption of the Lyons Township High School District 204 fiscal year 2024 budget. And we'll go back to you, Director Ryan Stachek, to present.
Thank you, President Aubert. And so this is the 4th and final time, at least, that we'll hear about this particular budget. We will do the same thing starting in October with the 2023 tax levy, but we'll get to that soon enough. So tonight, this is it. This is the final version right now of the fiscal year 24 school district budget. And again, you may recall I say right now because once the bond sale is completed, once we have the bid specs, once we have the bid opening for the summer of 2024 projects, we have to still plug all of that information into the budget, including, total amount of proceeds from the bond sale, the expense we think we're going to add to the budget through the rest of the fiscal year. We're going to look at those items and obviously bring back an amended budget to the board at some point. Probably it'll be February, March timeline, something along those lines. But that being said, as we sit here tonight, the district, as always, has a balanced budget. We're anticipating $97.1 million of revenue with $96.5 million of expenditure. So a $600,000 surplus anticipated at this particular time. Since we adopted the tentative budget, we talked at the committee of the whole meeting about a couple of changes that were made. One was that reduction of the corporate personal property replacement tax, and then an increase to the expense in transportation. And again, that was due to an invoice that we had arrived later, and we needed to bring into total dollar amount for projection for the following year. Other than that, you now have on page 8 and page 9 some narrative in terms of what is driving both the revenues and expenses in this particular budget. And then really on page 10 is where I have a breakdown where you can kind of see by certain objects, as I would call them, because that's what they're called in the budget form, where those revenues are and what fund they're going to, and then what objects on the expenditure side as well are how much those are, and then what funds they're going to, with a total on the right-hand side for all. And then, of course, you see on that page the $615,000 anticipated surplus. And then, of course, no budget presentation is complete without some pie charts. So on page 11 and page 12, you have those pie charts showing where our operating funds, which is really kind of a point to make here, and that is when you look at the revenue by source, we are 94% supported with local funds. That can be different by district. There are districts where the state funding is more than the local funding. And so in our case, 94% local, which is our local property taxes. That includes corporate personal property replacement taxes. That includes student fees. That includes payments for lunch. All of that, all of those dollars go into that 94%. And again, 5% from the state, 1% from the federal. And then, of course, you see on the pie chart there on page 12, the expenses, the expenditures. 71% of our total expense is related to salaries and benefits, and that is common in pretty much any school district in the state of Illinois, because that's where our expense goes. And then you see the breakdown of all the other percentages there as well. And then, of course, we have the 5036 form, which is the state budget form that we are required to use by the Illinois State Board of Education. That begins then on page 14. You will notice that if you go through, again, we have a balanced budget. All of that is correct. And then on page, what page was that here? Whoop, I went too far. On page 51, they have sort of this check for errors page, and the only error that's on there right now is that we have to type in the board names once the board has voted for or against the current budget. That will go away when I type those in and I upload that to the State Board of Education. I'll be working on that the rest of the week. That being said, as we've talked about on multiple occasions, this is the budget present it tonight for adoption now. We will certainly amend, as I said, as we lock in those costs for the construction projects, renovation projects, and then the proceeds for the bond sale as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time that the board may have.
I actually have a question on the capital bond projects. I know, thank you for sending that cost breakdown again. That was helpful for me to review and see. And there was a disclaimer on one of the last page that said that A&E costs were not included. I wasn't sure if it only applied to the remaining projects, which were more referenced like the phase 2, or if the A&E costs have not been captured in phase 1
Yeah,
projects
so
as
just to
well.
clarify, what I sent the board was simply the estimated costs as outlined by the architects about a year ago, in December. So really no relationship to the budget, but I just want to make sure that you.
Well, actually, no, I'm glad you're clarifying.
Yep.
Because I thought some of that was already going here into the budget, so
Yep.
I'll defer my question.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that was estimated cost for the summer '24 bond sale project. I mean, we'll have to have that discussion in January if the bid specs come back or the contracts come back higher than what we expect. So Brian can talk more about that, but.
yeah, and so what we'll end up doing is we'll be budgeting those costs, those architect costs, into Fund 60, which is the Site and Construction Fund, and then some of those costs will be, well, matter of fact, probably the majority of those costs will be covered, can be covered by the bond sale as well. So we still are going to have those costs involved with the project, that is correct. And so we will have those dollars in there, and all of that will be budgeted for when we essentially go through the amendment process.
Okay, that's what you're talking about, like the February, March.
Correct.
timeframe?
Yeah, and I actually have money in there now because we're going to incur costs as we go. So
Okay.
that will happen, that's correct.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the adoption of the LTHS 204 fiscal year 2024 budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Beta Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes. Okay, great. Moving on, our next unfinished business action item is the approval of the creation for bid specifications of the additional 2024 summer projects. And again, we're going to go to Director Brian Stachak.
Thank you, President O'Bear. So we talked about these again at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and so we're bringing those back. I did say that there would be some revisions to these, and we've done that. And so, again, we have about 6 projects here that we've talked about, replacement of some of the exterior doors and frames, those most in need here at both campuses, the replacement of some interior doors in conjunction with our life safety survey. And so that was one that we added from the last time. We've talked about the lights in the South Campus Fieldhouse and pool, the replacement of those, the replacement of the air handling unit in room 140 at North Campus. And then right now we are recommending, this is in addition as well, the replacement of the D-wing roof at South Campus. Some of that D-wing roof covers the current cafeteria. So a portion of that will be replaced with that renovation of that facility into the music facility, as we've been talking about with our projects. But the remaining part of the D-wing roof is from 1991, and so typically you would anticipate a 20 to 30 year look at a roof and say, okay, but certainly we are there at this particular point. And so that would be a recommendation to replace that roof as well. And then finally, we talked about the addition of those ticket booths at Bennett Field, because we have to get some work done to those pavers out there. If we were going to do these, now is the time to do them. And again, that expense is somewhat minimal. It's not, this isn't something that's required. Certainly, it's optional, but we're going to have to do some work to those pavers out there, so we thought this is the time to do it. The plans have already been drawn up for these. They were drawn up in 2013 or 14, so we thought this might be the time to move forward with these. In addition to that, as we talked about, there was a couple of recommendations from the board as well, one for additional air conditioning potentially in the D-wing at South Campus, and then we also talked about some additional accessibility features at some of the fields, those types of things. So our architects are currently working on some of that information. When we talked about that on Monday night, from Tuesday until the following Wednesday of last week when the board packet was in, we just didn't have enough time to kind of go through all that and really get a good look at that for the board. So we will do that, and we'll bring back some more information on those as we have that information going forward. So that being said, these additional projects will probably be in the ballpark, according to these estimates, about $4 million. And so, again, these are things, many of them, except, of course, with the ticket booths, things that we really do need to do. And so there is the possibility that when we look at budgeting these going forward, not so much this coming year, but in a future year, we may be spending some reserves on these projects. And I think these are projects that would be well deserving of spending some reserves on, because we need to get these done. I'll have a clearer picture of all of that. And the reason I say that I don't have a clear picture on it right now is because when we take the bond sale proceeds in coming up here in November, December, whatever that timeline will be, you can spend any money on any project that you have with those bond sale dollars. And really, what you want to do is we need to get rid of that money within 3 years of the bond sale, as we've talked about. So it makes sense for the district to spend those dollars, the bond sale dollars, on all of the projects that we have going on. And then in those later years, we're using district reserves to spend on those projects. So we're going to look at all of it in the big picture, and then we'll bring it all back to the board after we get those bids, the bid costs that we open up in December, and look at probably in January. And then I'll have a big picture look for the board in terms of, here's what we have: total expenses, expected expenditures, total revenue from the bond sale, and then here's how much we potentially could use for district reserves for those projects. And so, but again, the goal will be to spend down those bond sale dollars as quickly as we can, because we do need to get rid of those. There are timelines involved in that, and so we'll adhere to those, but you can spend those dollars on any one of these projects, and so that's what we'll be looking to do to move those dollars along. And then, like I said, at the end, we'll say, okay, when I can get this big picture together, I can come back and say, total expected expenditure, total revenue, here's how much we need to use of district reserves on all these projects.
Just because Brian, you touched on it and said, within the time period, in order for DLA to get back to us for those additional things that we talked about, if we were to approve moving forward on bid specifications at this point, would those come back to us later, or
Yes.
you would have them as a
Correct.
separate,
Yes.
maybe next month or
Yeah,
whatever?
I don't know what the timeline will
Okay.
be, but we'll certainly bring something back to the board, and we need to take a look at, obviously with HVAC, we need to spend some time really kind of thinking that through and saying, okay, is this something that we want to replace right now, or is this something that maybe becomes part of that project, right, in the
Right.
following year, so that it makes sense when we have an HVAC contractor on site, that there is somewhat of a economy of scale to say, okay, that makes some sense. Same thing with some of the, when we're looking at accessibility issues, where do we want to go with those, and how do we want to implement those? And it's going to take a little bit of thought on those. So we want to make sure that we're doing those appropriately. We're not doing something that 2 years from now doesn't make sense. And then we say, well, why did we do it that way? Now we're going to redo this. Or there's an economy of scale in terms of cost that we would have contractors out who could do that for us as well. And quite honestly, some of these projects here that you see listed here separately as the O&M projects will most likely get tossed into the bid specifications that we're going to put out on the street here coming up, because it makes sense to do that when you have contractors that are involved in it. So you may not see these as separate projects for bids. We may bid them as alternates in some of these projects. They may just be wound up into the total cost, but we'll kind of take a look at those and see if we can break some of those costs out as well. But we will bring back those additional projects coming up here. I don't have a specific timeline yet, but we will definitely bring them back, and we have those under consideration, and the architects know about them.
That's great. Just
Yeah.
'cause again, that was partially why I asked about the dealing, was, again, the economies of scale, because
Correct.
I'm thinking that we were going to be involved in there. And I did like what Tim had to say about looking at some of the
Sure.
accessibility
Absolutely.
opportunities at our fields.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is a unique year because we're undertaking, potentially $30 million worth of work, and we're getting started with that. So you normally wouldn't have that with these projects. These would be the projects. We would bid those, package them the best way we could, and then go out and bid them. Right now, we can take advantage potentially of these larger scale projects that we have coming up and putting these projects in with those and getting them completed at the same time. So it is unique in that sense, if hopefully that makes sense to everybody.
So even though the additional bid specifications are gonna come back out of sync with what we're potentially approving today, you're still gonna get them in time to have the whole picture will be presented to us
Hopefully, yes.
at the same time.
Hopefully,
So
yes.
we can consider everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it may be that we look at those for the summer of '24. It may be that we look at them for the summer of '25, because again, we're gonna have large-scale projects that are going on, so we're gonna try to package those and get them in the appropriate spot. So yes, we may be bringing those back for the summer of '24, and it may be '25. We'll take a look at those and with the architects and see what works. But we have them on the radar, and we'll continue working with them to make sure that we get something back to the board.
So if I understand correctly, when you go out to bid for the bond projects, these will be listed kind of like as options?
They
for
may or
the
may not be.
bidders, or-
They may and they
Okay.
may not be. It depends on how we can package these
Okay.
with the projects that will be running in the summer of '24.
Okay.
So if it makes sense to run something as an alternate, we can do that, because when we run the alternate, then we have the actual breakout cost of that project. And it may not make sense, right? If we have an HVAC project going on, we know that, for example, we need to replace this air handling unit in room 140. We just may say, we're going to put that in there as part of the bid on the whole project, and we're good to go. Yeah.
Remember when we, like maybe like a year ago, I don't know how blurs together, but we had that guy that came in with the rebates for the lights?
Yes.
Well, is this addressing that and?
No.
and that- Okay, how,
No. So what we can do is we
Well, it's
can.
addressing that space. It's just a
Yeah.
different strategy to address the space.
okay, like, how does that
Yeah.
involved with this?
Yeah, so, right, we are addressing the space. However, this is a different project from what was talked about at that particular point.
Okay.
right? We're replacing all of the fixtures in here. We're gonna go over to LED lights. There is the potential that we could see some rebate savings from ComEd because we're running this project, so we will talk with our architects about that as well.
Because that would be great if we could optimize on that, because
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
remember specifically
Absolutely.
what it was, but wasn't it like light bulb replacement, like 60,000-70,000 or something like that?
Yeah,
I feel
that
like
is,
I'm on a quiz,
right.
I can't remember
This-
specifically, but.
Yeah, this is going to be full-on light fixture replacement.
Right, but in that light fixture replacement, you're replacing the type of bulb that's there.
Yes.
So that would qualify, I would think, for the
Correct.
program. Okay.
Yeah, we won't be putting anything less than LEDs in the facilities at this point.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
and the current fixtures would not support that.
But I'm just curious how that rebate program will, if that will be involved in that and
I can get some
is-
more, yeah, I can get some more
Okay.
information on that for you.
Perfect. I don't remember all the specifics.
Yep,
You brought in a big, I remember that. You brought in a big,
No, I mean, like, I was like a blur, but I remember something about light bulbs in the pool
Yeah.
and
yeah, that's right.
LEDs, and it was like 70,000 or something.
Yep,
That's all I recall.
yep. So we'll,
Okay, thanks.
we can bring some information back about what programs ComEd has in place right now, because they typically have, programs in place for rebates for upgrading your lighting for energy purposes, so we can take a look.
And I want to I would want to make sure that we're thoughtful of the fixtures. If I wouldn't want to put one fixture in and exclude us from the rebate when it could be.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
just more information about that would be
Correct.
great. Thank you.
Yep.
So on that note, I'm assuming you're looking at all incentive opportunities like that, right? Because there's like other rebate programs or subsidiary type of programs, like with this, not the city, but just in general, because there's similar programs like to ComEd with like solar energy, like I'm just thinking
Yes.
big picture. I don't have specifics, but I'm guessing that you guys are doing that as you learn of opportunities, right?
Right, and that's as our architects are talking about some of the green initiatives that we're
Yes.
looking at, that would be.
MWRD, I thought.
Yeah, that's, MWRD is a different issue, that's
Okay.
all water retention.
Okay.
And so we'll look at, options with that as well, because we're going to have to probably put in water retention someplace. However, the use of permeable pavers, for example, mitigates the amount of water retention, there's one or two there. But
Water
anyway,
retention, right.
yeah, so we'll look at all of that and see what we can do. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, I think this is great. We've got some green initiatives in here. I'm glad that you guys continue to look at the accessibility issues. I think that's always important. I didn't expect that you guys would have a proposal by now, but I'm glad it still remains on the radar, and I agree 100%. We have to do it wisely and thoughtfully, so I'm glad that it continues to be on the radar.
Yep.
Okay. If there are no other questions or points of discussion, can we have a motion to approve the creation of bid specifications for the additional summer 2024 projects as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Albert?
Yes. Okay, great. Our next unfinished business action item is the second reading of the curriculum change proposals. We'll go to Director Scott Eggerdine for those.
Thank you, President Albert. Tonight, we are bringing forward the 2024-25 curriculum change proposals that we heard about at the Committee of the Whole, with no changes and with administrative recommendations to approve all of them, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
We had some lengthy conversation about
Yep.
some of the exciting changes and that are being made for next year. Anybody have any additional questions or comments for Scott? No? Okay. In that case, can we have a motion to approve the curriculum change proposals as presented?
So moved.
Second. Gary, you can have it.
There you go.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Albert?
Yes. And our final unfinished business action item is the second reading of the updates to policy 5230, maintaining student discipline. And for that, we have Director Dr. Leslie Owens. And we also had some conversation about this, but I don't know if there's anything additional to.
Sure, no, just the second read, so just the update that was recommended in Press 112, that is highlighted in green in the packet, and then in the blue, there was a question at the board table on the 21st of August about the use of force in defensive property, and we clarified that after consultation with our law firm to make sure that we qualified that with only in the case where there was significant risk of harm to students or others. So that was updated in blue, as well as a new reference to updated administrative code that supports that. So that would just be up for approval.
Great. Any questions or discussion? Okay, can we have a motion to approve the updates to policy 5230, maintaining student discipline, as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Albert?
Yes. Okay, excellent. Moving on to new business. Our first new business action item is a resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $27 million general obligation limited tax school bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of the district, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest of said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof. For that, we're going to go back to you, Director Brian Stachek.
Thank you, President Albert. So this is the final step we need from the board tonight to approve this parameters resolution. And then what will ultimately happen after that is we actually have a rating agency call later this week on Thursday, which will determine the bond rating for the district. As you know, the district has had a AAA rating. We plan on keeping that. As we go through that rating agency call later this week. And then, again, based on the approval of tonight, the district then would sell the bonds based on kind of the appropriate time frame coming up here in the next couple of months. Again, $27 million not to exceed. I don't think we'll get to $27 million, But that's why we set that number up at that high end. It'll probably be something closer to $26.5 million. And Elizabeth Hennessy, by the way, from Raymond James, is in the audience as well tonight. Elizabeth, is that accurate in terms of where we think we would be with the bond sale? So, thank you. And so, essentially, again, we'd be selling those bonds. We're gonna, as I mentioned here, most likely sell them in two issuances, two what they consider to be small issuances. And the reason for that is because right now, the overnight rate, meaning if you have your money in a money market fund, you're earning over 5% in terms of your interest earnings on that. And so, what the potential is, if we sold it all at one time, then we would be subject to arbitrage. And what that means is that we would be earning more on those borrowed dollars in interest than what we're actually paying in interest. And I can tell you that the IRS does not look kindly on that when public entity is selling the bonds. So if you have what we consider to be small issuances, $15 million or less, then arbitrage is not an issue, and so we can maximize those interest earnings as well. I can tell you that it will cost the district about $46,000 more to do that, but we also believe, based on the current rates, the return on investment, and we don't anticipate those going down anytime soon, that it's going to be worth it to do that, because we're going to actually be able to earn more in interest on those interest rates than we would otherwise. And so that's really most likely the way that we're going to go. The district did something similar to that in 2013 and 14. There was a sale in December of 2013, and then one in January of 2014 again. So that was a similar practice that was utilized back then. Other than that, we kind of have the parameters spelled out here in terms of where we're going. And again, this is the final step for the board. We will need signatures, I think, from myself and from President O'Bear at some point here coming up when that sale is done. We then take, we'll close. The dollars come to the district. They will go into the working cash fund, and then that's when the fund begins in terms of we'll have to transfer those out of the working cash fund, most likely over to our, I was going to say bond and interest fund, not the bond and interest fund, the building and grounds fund, and then from there over to the 60 fund. That's a legal complication that we have to do with the state, and then the money will be residing there to pay for those upcoming expenditures. So again, we'll talk about all of that at the time of the amendment to the budget. So we'll have all that information then. Elizabeth, is there anything that I missed that we should be addressing here tonight beside that?
No, I think you covered it well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Same here. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this tonight.
No, you were really thorough. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any questions from the board?
I guess I'm just curious about the timing. So like,
Sure.
when will how far apart are going to be the two issuances?
It could be at least 15 days apart.
Okay.
So our goal is to get into the market in the third week of October, and then close this first bond issue, which will be about $15 million in December. So that's when you'll get the money, or in November, sorry. And then the next issue will mail, but we can't sell it till January. And we're hoping to get it to the market that second week of January, once business is open again. And then you'll close on that piece about 3 weeks later, the third week in January. So everything should be in the bank by the end of January.
The only other item I would bring to the board's attention is on page 66, which kind of shows you the tax levies that will be utilized to pay back those dollars, those borrowed dollars, and then the proposed debt service repayment schedule. And so you have all of that there. And the reason I bring that to your attention is because we will be expecting at least a 1.5% increase to the tax levy going forward in that bond and interest fund, and that is part of that supplemental levy process that we talk about every year, where we have the general tax levy, and then we have that supplemental levy. That supplemental levy goes to support the dollars only that go to pay back the bond sale. So when you've heard me talk in the past about the district, assuming that there would be increases to the levy over the course of time on the prior bond sale, the same thing is assumed here as well. just so you're aware of that. So moving forward, that would be the expectation. Now, the final dollar amount is based on the CPI. Could be higher than this, and it could be lower than this, so we have to kind of keep an eye on that. But nonetheless, the expectation is that we would be increasing that by at least the 1.5% going forward in those future years. Sure.
Any other questions or discussion from the board? Okay. Per the resolution, the board secretary will now read a motion.
Can we have a motion to approve the resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $27 million general obligation limited tax school bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of the district, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Beta Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next new business action item is the first reading of the 2024-2025 school calendar, and we will go to Director Scott Eckerding.
Thank you, President O'Bear. First of all, thank you for passing or approving the curriculum. That gets us really going into next year. Now we need calendars so we can teach all that new curriculum. So, as I like to joke, that's really where we are in curriculum now. We're working on next year. So, this first calendar follows a lot of the traditional things that we've been doing with calendars for probably about a dozen years, and that is having final exams before winter break, which actually moves all sorts of things around. It hasn't moved them for a while because that's what we've been doing, but ultimately what it does it has us starting August 19th. That allows us to get through the last day of semester 1 on December 20th. And as you see on the calendar there, that's 83 days. Semester 2 is 10 days longer. That starts on January 7th and ends on May 29th for students. There has been an imbalance ever since we've done that. That being said, the second semester does have a number of days that are, for lack of a better term, lost. We have 3 days of state testing, we have an all-school assembly, we have a number of things that we do in the spring. And if students are in AP classes, those tests begin the first day of May. So if anything, the AP teachers would like to start even earlier. And as we've gone through this for a number of years, this is about as early as anyone is willing to go. But because in order to balance it out, we'd have to start the first week of August, so, or around then. That being said, we did have some discussion about spring break and when that would fall. We have it here in the draft calendar, beginning March 31st and ending April 4th. Usually we take the last full week of March. Given that it sort of bleeds into April, we did look to see what DuPage County does. DuPage County's Regional Office of Education has calendar guidelines. Cook County does not, West Forty does not. The DuPage Regional Office, this is their recommended, not only start and end dates, but also their spring break dates. And given that many of our faculty live in the DuPage County area, we felt it made sense to match them, at least for this year. You'll also notice that the Easter holiday is relatively late. We do have a non-attendance day on the Friday before, and that's the 18th of April. So that's about as late as you can have that as well. Other things that we've done, we've added an Institute Day in February, February 28th. There's been years we've used it. There's been years that we haven't. More and more of our teams and teachers have been interested in attending countywide Institute Day activities throughout DuPage County, especially in our elective areas. We've been needing to get subs for that. There was a way to do that, and essentially what we're looking at here is using that day as as an Institute Day for the teachers and not for students. We've always had an extra day, so to speak, and that's really comes from Parent-teacher conferences allows you to count an extra day. We've always kept that in case of an emergency of some kind. But really, that was a practice done prior to e-learning. And now that we have e-learning, we feel that if we have to take a day, we could either add a day at the end, because students would still have a Friday, that we could add another day and have a real snow day, or we could have an e-snow day. So, and that gives our teachers the opportunity to have that extra institute day. The only other little wrinkle you'll notice, November 5th has a funky sign to it. That's election day. The state has deemed that any school that offers its buildings as a polling place be closed for security reasons, but can then use it as an e-learning day, and that's what we intend to do. We just indicate that there won't be school that day with that new symbol. Other than that, late starts, early dismissals match the way they've been. You'll also notice we're keeping the Freshman Experience Day on August 16th. That's given us an opportunity for all of our teachers at South Campus to be available to meet all of their students as they go through their schedules, which we found to be a great way for them to feel a little more sense of calm and know where their classes are before the very first day of school. And probably the only other little things you'll notice on April 16th and 17th. This is the first year that we're using, or that the SAT has gone fully online. So we are changing a little bit how we do the SAT next year, in that we're going to have the juniors do it, and juniors and sophomores one day, freshmen another day. And we're adding it to that Easter weekend. So for seniors, it's a 5-day weekend. And some for 4, and others will have to come back that Thursday. But in any case, we're trying to minimize the number of disruptions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. This, again, is a draft. We're sharing it with our associate schools. It'll be put on the school website at some point in the next 12 hours, and it will be available for our community to respond to. And I'll report all that back at our next meeting.
Questions? Comments? You know, Scott, I'm thrilled about the additional institute day. So you've heard me ask about that several years in a row now, so I think that's great. I didn't quite catch the SAT schedule on the 16th.
It's
and
April 16th, 17th, and 18th. So April 16th will be the SAT for the juniors and the PSAT 10. The freshmen won't be in attendance that day. And then on the next day, the freshmen will be the attendance, and they'll be taking the PSAT 9.
So the way we did it this year, or the way we will be doing it this year and in previous years, those days off or that time off with the students?
It's always taken us 2 days to do the tests because of the extra supports needed for students who have extended time and whatnot. We've been told it's going to be different for SAT, so we have had to stagger it for this year as well. It just wasn't in the calendar as it was sent out originally or approved last year, because we didn't know that was going to be the direction that SAT was going. So just giving people a heads up of when that test will happen, and we're going to be giving all of our students, all of our juniors, the online SAT, PSAT, and MSQT this fall. Actually, I believe the 10th or 11th of October, the Tuesday after Columbus Day. Just really see, because we're not sure how all of the accommodated testing is going to work. We've been told, but no one's seen or experienced.
Got it.
So,
Yeah. You're proactively considering that.
And if it's a totally new format as it is, we want the students to try it that way and get some results and see how it differs perhaps if they've taken a different test previously.
And then for the addition of the Institute Day, does that put an additional day on the end of the calendar then?
No, it doesn't. So we have two numbers. If you look in the bottom left corner of page 105, there are the number of student days, and that needs to add up to 176, and it does. That does take into account a day for parent-teacher conferences. A parent-teacher conference in the evening counts for a student attendance day. Obviously, it doesn't mean kids are in school, but it counts for calendar days. Our teachers have a contract of 183 days. And so by having them be here, it counts for them as well. So that day counts for them by being here. In the past, we would have had 177 days by having the students here on that day as well, but we don't
Okay.
need to do that. And so that's why we're at 176, 183, having the students.
We're
Okay.
essentially losing that built-in day.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're in a good place where we don't need it. It's much more valuable to have that for the Institute Day for our
Yeah.
staff than to have it in the bank for Snow Day.
Okay.
And then just to make everything look pretty, we wanted to make sure that our final exams are together. So if you'll notice, we have final exams the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after Memorial Day. We could have started them on the 23rd, the Friday, and the Tuesday, Wednesday, but splitting them over a weekend it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So we did add an extra day off in February, the Friday before President's Day. We're doing that this year as well. It's a last chance for seniors to go on some college visits. It's a winter break, so to speak. Not very long, but
4-day weekend though.
but a
Still
4-day
nice.
weekend. And in some instances, that could also be a day, depending if we have a really early December snow issue, we could take that day back as an attendance day too. So that it's a Valentine's Day gift to everybody.
I noticed that. Okay. All right, well, if there's no other discussion or questions from the board, we're going to see this again, I think in 2 weeks.
No,
a
October
month,
16th,
next
yeah.
month.
Yeah, this will
Because
kind
it
of kick
will
off the
open up.
window that we'll get all kinds of feedback from our community staff, everything, and then bring it back on October 16th.
We shared it with our faculty association already and
Yep.
the social schools already.
Great, well, thank you very much.
Scott, the only thing is, for the grading period, December 18th through 21st, for first semester final exams, that would probably be the 18th through the 20th.
Oh, very
I don't
good.
think anybody's gonna come in on Saturday for an exam, but maybe they are.
I will
Good
make sure
catch.
they say yes. Very good catch. This is one of those things I probably look at 700 times, and
Mhm.
always miss one, so I'm glad
Yep.
you caught it.
Yeah.
I'll fix it before it goes out, right, Mary Lynn?
Right.
All right, great, thank you. Our final new business action item is the consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing District 204's participation in social media litigation, and we will go to Dr. Brian Waterman for that.
Thank you, President Albert. So, yeah, I first shared this with the board in early August. There's currently a large-scale litigation effort against the giant social media companies, Facebook, X, Meta, Snapchat, TikTok. The litigation seeks to address the negative impacts that these companies are having on students and school districts across the country. Franz Law Group from California and Franzik Law Firm from Illinois are co-counsel in this effort. And so far, about 335 school districts, including many of our neighboring districts here in Illinois, are signing on to participate. So, as has been shared previously with the board, there's no cost to the district, and there is no outlay of money in any scenario related to participating in this lawsuit. Any attorney fees would be paid out of a potential settlement or damages awarded in the case. And most importantly, while it's likely that the litigation could result in financial damages, it's also possible that injunctive relief or mandated remedies could occur through this process as well. So the board has had a chance to review the information related to the lawsuit, including the webinar link several weeks ago. And participating in this would require the board to authorize a resolution and attorney-client fee agreement at tonight's meeting. Based on all the review of the materials I've done, I recommend that the board approve the resolution and attorney fee arrangement and choose to participate in the litigation.
Great, comments, discussion by the board, questions?
I appreciate that and all the background information that was supplied in the packet as well.
I think I'm grateful that this is happening. I think this is very important litigation to be pursuing, and if it goes the way that other cases similar to it, that injunctive relief and the remedies to how these social media companies market to our sensitive younger students will hopefully be remedied in a better direction. So I'm very happy that this is going on, and it's great that the district can participate in this without having any financial outlay whatsoever. And doing that side, it's fantastic. Anybody else?
I agree, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's important litigation. I think there is a level of responsibility that we need to investigate, and I'm glad that we're participating in it.
Great. Okay, can we have a motion to approve the board's participation in the social media litigation by approving the resolution and attorney fee arrangement as shared in your materials and present it tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you call the roll?
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
No.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes. Okay, great, that passes. And last, we've come to our consent agenda. We've now reached the consent agenda portion of our meeting. Our consent agenda includes the following items: payment of bills and financial statements for LTHS and LADSI for months of June and July 2023, human resources items for LTHS and LADSI, review and approval of the meeting minutes, open and closed sessions, and overnight student travel. Any discussion or comments by the board? Okay, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, will you please call the roll?
Member Alvarez?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes.
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Nava?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes. Okay, our final agenda item is the second opportunity for audience members to give comments or feedback to the Board of Education. Marilyn, do we have anyone signed up? Okay. Marilyn, will you please call our first speaker?
Andrew Johannes?
Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, guys. I apologize for my tardiness tonight.
No problem.
But it's hard to believe that we are already a month into the school year. Time is flying by as students and teachers settle into the first semester. Over the last 2 weeks, as you've heard, we've welcomed parents and guardians at the open house. During these nights, parents and guardians get an opportunity to walk their child's schedule and meet the teachers. These are long days for the faculty and staff, but it is nice to begin the school-home partnership. The heat continues to be a major disruption in the educational experience of our students. The southwest corner of North Campus experienced room temperatures in the upper 80s and lower 90s during the recent heat wave. Also, many of the South Campus wings experienced disruptions in service due to the stress of the system. Thankfully, the heat has subsided, but this will continue to be an issue until the entire building's environments can be regulated. I would like to thank Sarah Smith and Greg Gardner, the associate principals at both campuses, for working with teachers to find alternate locations for classes and addressing the concerns of teachers. Also, Buildings and Grounds has had their hands full, but they have made the best of their situation and their circumstances, so we'd like to thank them as well. I would like to recognize the instructional coaches, Kristen Bacon, Virginia Condon, Amy Johnson, Joseph Maffey, Tina Mancini, Rebecca Riven, Kali Saleme, Daravoy, and Jeremy Burtis for their leadership in the implementation of the new professional development initiative. I'd also like to thank the 65 teachers who are the PLC leaders. This has been a big undertaking, and they have had to learn as we are going along. We're starting to see the clarity and focus of the program. The focus on student engagement will positively impact the students. We have seen the proposed calendar for next year. The exec board will be meeting tomorrow to be discussing it, but everything kind of seems right on track. Finally, I would like to recognize a few teachers. Congratulations to Joseph Maffey, who was named the Journalism Education Association Rising Star for their work in the yearbook and menagerie. And I would also like to give a shout out to English teacher Bill Wesley. Mr. Wesley was mentioned in a recent article about Alex Convery, an alum of 2010, who wrote the screenplay Air. This is the story of Michael Jordan and Nike. Convery cited Mr. Wesley's as a teacher who inspired him while at LT. So I thought that was a pretty cool shout out. That's all I have, so thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Becky Lawrenson.
Hello, everybody. Just a couple things tonight. I want to thank, on behalf of Community Diversity Group, congratulate Michael Thomas on the award that he got for the community for all the service that you've done in the community. I want to appreciate that. And to those of you who were able to attend the Unity Rally, thank you for being there. Secondly, the Mosaic Project. So believe it or not, it's done. And so I want to thank those of you who were able to come and lay tiles. I think it was great fun for everybody who was there, and we are going to have a celebration. So I'll be sending the information officially via email so it can be distributed. But on Sunday, October 15th, just not quite a month from now, we're going to have a party. And part of the party will be, we will present the mosaics to the Park District of LaGrange, and we're also going to have a lot of entertainment and food. Among the entertainment is a couple bands. Somebody from the neighborhood has a DJ that's going to be performing. Somebody else is a professional breakdance person who's going to be performing with audience participation. And we're trying to see if we can get the LT Steppers there as well. So that's in progress. So I just wanted to let everyone know, so if you can put that on your calendar, it's October 15th, a Sunday, from 2 to 5 p.m. So, thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Any additional speakers, Marilyn?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. May I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned. Great evening.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.